Hey everybody, it's Gary Powell, Certified Health Coach, and I was going to come to you today and talk a little bit about transforming your kitchen. As you heard on Monday, Matt said that this week's theme is transformations, and then you heard Cindy's awesome transformation story yesterday. So today in the kitchen, we're going to transform a few of your favorite holiday recipes, or at least give you information so that you can transform them and make them much healthier and help support you on your journey towards health through the new year. Now, most of us are probably familiar with the glycemic index. Some of us, depending on our health journey, may be a little bit more familiar with it than others, but just in case, food is broken up into three separate categories based on how it reacts with your blood sugar and causes your blood sugar and your insulin levels to rise after you eat it. Higher on the glycemic index means that it's going to cause your blood sugars to go higher, and your insulin is then going to also raise to try to counteract those blood sugars, and vice versa. So those of you who are out there who deal with type 1 or type 2 diabetes, you're probably really familiar with this and the insulin cycle and how as you eat, your blood sugars go up, then your insulin kicks in, and then that lowers it back down, and then you eat again and it goes back up, and you start this roller coaster of going up and down. But by eating food that's lower on the glycemic index, that roller coaster, those hills and valleys get much smaller, and it evens out your blood sugar, which obviously has some awesome health benefits other than just stabilizing your blood sugar. Actually, a lot of research is coming out through the Harvard Medical School that in not just maintaining weight and reducing your blood sugar, actually eating foods that are lower on the glycemic index have decreased risk of various types of cancer, such as prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and breast cancer. Also, it shows a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease if you eat more lower glycemic fruits and vegetables. So, with this information, obviously, it's probably much healthier for us to start taking some of those old family favorites and swapping out some lower glycemic ingredients in there, such as pumpkin pie. Let's talk about that one, since now that Halloween's over, and unless you live in my house where Christmas then automatically takes over. But for most people, the next big thing is going to be Thanksgiving. So, a lot of people eat pumpkin pie around that time. But pumpkin is actually pretty high on the glycemic index. It causes your blood sugars to rise, and then, of course, your insulin levels are going to rise to meet that. So some of those things that you can change to transform that recipe is to use other squash that is lower on the glycemic index but have very similar flavors. For example, this guy right here, this is delicata, has a very mild pumpkin or sweet potato type flavor. The recipe that I'm going to show you later today is going to feature this guy right here. This is kabocha squash. This is very much pumpkin flavored with a little bit slight flavor of sweet potato. So in your recipes that are during the Thanksgiving season that include things like sweet potatoes in casseroles or pumpkin pies, these would be great substitutes to lower the glycemic level of those things and help you on your journey towards greater health. All right, just as promised, I'm going to show you how to transform a regular pumpkin pie recipe into one that's lower on the glycemic index using kabocha squash. Now, kabocha squash is originally from Japan, so depending on your grocer, you may be able to find it pretty easily. If you have a grocer that carries predominantly Asian food, it may be slightly easier to find there. But if you call around, it's pretty readily available almost everywhere in the United States. But this recipe will help you stay on track during the holidays, be able to have that dessert that you love, and your family won't know the difference. For this recipe, you're going to need 4 cups of roasted kabocha squash, 1/2 cup of unsweetened cashew or almond milk, 3/4 cups of egg white substitute, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, 1 teaspoon of maple or vanilla extract, 2 teaspoons of stevia, and 1 cup of walnuts. Now, because the kabocha squash skin is really tough, I like to microwave it for about 2 minutes just to soften that up so that it's easier to cut into pieces in just a few minutes. Now that the squash has been microwaved and the skin is a lot softer, you can just easily cut this into wedges to prepare it for roasting. So once you have your squash cut and quartered, you're going to want to take the seeds out of it. And then you're going to put it on some baking sheets covered with aluminum foil. You're going to want to spray the side that's pointed up with some baking spray, and then pop it into the oven for about 30 minutes on 400 degrees. After about 30 minutes, you're going to flip these over, spray the other side, and then bake them for another 15 minutes. Once they're done, let them cool before you start to peel the skin off the outside. Alright, so once that's done, you're going to want to pull those out of the oven and let them rest so that they can cool down so that they're easier to handle. Now, at this point, you could actually use the squash as a side item as it is. It smells wonderful, by the way. It's perfectly roasted, and you can actually eat the skin. However, for the pie, we're going to want to cut the skin off and then measure out 4 cups of this roasted kabocha squash. You're going to want to take all of the ingredients except for the walnuts and then mix them together in either a blender or a food processor until it's really nice and smooth. Once you have your squash pureed, you're going to want to pour that into a pie pan that's been lightly sprayed with cooking spray. You're going to pop that into an oven at 425 degrees for 15 minutes. Alright, after those 15 minutes, you're going to want to take it out of the oven, reduce the temperature to 350 degrees. Then you're going to just evenly distribute the walnuts on top, put it back in the oven, and bake it for an additional 25 minutes. Once you take it out of the oven, just let it cool, and there you have it. It's a dessert that everyone can enjoy. You can stay on your health journey, and the rest of the family, they're not going to be able to tell the difference. Hopefully you enjoy the Crustless Pumpkin Pie.